you. We're gonna solve that mystery. New rant. Another one to go. Theaters. So I think this one's pretty understandable. Theaters, more specifically movie theaters, but you could call it kind of also extend this to proper theaters, stage performers and such. Theaters have gone in a weird direction in the past years. Obviously, when like movie theaters started to become a big thing, Nickelodeons and stuff. For those of you unaware, a Nickelodeon was not always a television channel aimed towards children. A Nickelodeon used to be a movie theater that you would go to, and it would cost, one ticket would cost a nickel, hence the name. But when Nickelodeons were a thing and stuff, but theaters have really gone kind of downhill. Obviously, COVID's partially to blame. I don't think anybody would say that it's just been the theaters, but I think COVID was kind of the final nail in the coffin for a lot of theaters. Now, I still go to the theaters when I can if I really want to get a good experience. Like Godzilla vs. Kong came out recently, and when I went to see that, I saw it in the theater because I wanted to see big monsters fight, and I wanted to feel, with the sound system and everything, big monsters fight, right? I went to a horrible theater to do it in. I wish I would have gone to a better theater, but so is life. But yeah, there's still instances where I'm going to go to the movie theater because I want that movie theater experience. Obviously, not the expensive-ass concessions. I get why they're pricey. If any of you have worked in a movie theater and knowing the dealings on with movie theaters, so when they get a movie, that movie has like a set license or whatever, and there's a certain contract that goes down. Basically, the studio gets a percentage of the ticket sales. You're like, okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Well, when the movie first releases, they get a fairly high percentage of the ticket sales. Then, either A, the more tickets sold, or B, the longer the film is in the theater, then that percentage slowly shifts in the theater's favor rather than the studio's favor, right? I think now it's typically done by ticket sales. I think it used to be done by time in the theater, but I think now it's done by ticket sales. And that's the thing. Movie theaters make not that much money off of ticket sales unless the movie's been running for weeks and weeks and people have consistently been seeing it in large numbers over those weeks. But that's not really how people see movies anymore. A lot of people see movies, within the first week or whatever, or they do what I do sometimes. And if it's a movie that I don't really care about, I don't need the big theater experience to see it, I'll pirate it. So I saw Endgame in theaters. It's like, oh, cool, great. Watched it. Got that big studio sound. All that stuff. It was great. Then I wanted to watch it again. I pirated it. Sure, there's Chinese subtitles, but it was in English. Quality was okay, and it was free. Screw it. I didn't have to drive. I didn't have to, sit near people. I could be in the comfort of my own room. I could have headphones on, so the sound quality was different, but still good for what it was for a pirated film. I didn't download it or anything like that. I just streamed it. That's another thing, like with pirating websites and streaming. Yeah. When streaming services started to come out with their own movies to where you could only watch them on the streaming platform and they weren't coming out in theaters, that hurt movie theaters a lot, obviously. And then, obviously, and then with COVID, of course, that hurt movie theaters even more because people were now focused on streaming more, and companies and studios were now focused on streaming more because that's what the audience is. And so now they, hyper-centralized on that market and making content for that market. They're not making as much content or making proper content for theaters anymore. And so theaters are going to struggle. I mean, you think about the movies that released in theaters. Tenet, was supposed to be like this big, movie that was a big Christopher Nolan movie that was supposed to return people to movie theaters, stuff like that. Didn't do jack shit. It worked. Big Monkey. Big Monkey worked. Godzilla, Kong, that worked. That got people back to the theaters. But even still, it's going to be hard to get people back to the theaters. And I think it will for a long time. Honestly, there's those people that are super paranoid about COVID or whatever. And, obviously with the expensive cost of movies nowadays, I usually go on like special days. So like Tuesdays and Thursdays, they usually have reduced pricing because who the fuck goes to a movie on Tuesdays? But yeah, they usually have like reduced pricing on those days. I think Thursdays is like student days. So it's like $6 for a student and faculty. And then I think Tuesdays are $5 for anybody. Which is awesome. Definitely it's a cheaper ticket price. And if you want to go like a 3D movie, for instance, it'd be $6, not $5. So like awesome. Reduced ticket price or whatever. And it was great. And then concessions obviously do the good old, sneak it in your coat, whatever, bring your own fucking candy like a sane person, Why spend like $2.50 on a box of Raisinets when I can go to, Dollar Tree just down the street, buy a $1 box of Raisinets that's the same size, and then put it in my coat pocket. And then the drink, a lot of these theaters now, they're giving you these plastic, like hard plastic reusable souvenir cups as like the large, right? And so you can just keep those and come back to the theater next time and then fill up your fountain drink at the self-serve. Now, obviously, with COVID, the self-serves are no longer operational. They do all the filling for you, so you can't do that anymore. But for the time, it was pretty awesome. And when COVID restrictions lighten up and, companies are like, yeah, we'll have you do the soda fountain thing again. Great. Because having to have an employee utilized for that costs the company more money than just maintaining the machine, where it is. So obviously, they want to try to cut that cost. COVID restrictions were really weird. They reduced income flow while at the same time increasing maintenance and employment costs. Really weird. Really fucking weird. Like, in the strangest ways imaginable, it like altered how businesses spent money. It's just strange. But yeah, so that's just kind of thing. But yeah, movie theaters. I think it's gonna be a hard time for people to go back to them. But yeah, you look at these like series on Disney Plus, like there was the WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier. These were like movie level quality shows for the most part. Like they had like movie shit. Like it was good. Obviously some of the writing was off and stuff, but for the most part, shit was good from a technical standpoint. From a story standpoint, that's a different argument to be made. Because there's movies with shit stories, there's TV shows with amazing stories, who knows? Right? So the story thing is beside it. But from a technical standpoint, the visual effects, the costume design, the cinematography, all that stuff, it was cinema level quality for a streaming show, which is, crazy. But it's because of that kind of thing where, yeah, people might not go to the theaters down the line, especially with how much TV technology has been improving, and phone technology and speaker technology and all this other stuff, how much it's been improving. You can get a relatively inexpensive TV, depending on your budget, that, has that movie quality picture, right? And then you can buy, a speaker system that has that really good surround sound, that really good bump to it. And you have an amazing setup, and it wouldn't break too much of the bank. And I would say probably the audio setup will cost more than the TV even, depending on what you're looking at. Which is insane to think about. But yeah, people's houses are becoming more like their own personal theaters. Especially with, they can have whatever snacks they want. They can save money on snacks. They get unlimited refills, all this shit. It's just, it's kind of crazy. But yeah, I think theaters are on the out and out, which is unfortunate because I really like theaters. And I'm not one to spend a bunch of money on like my movie watching experience because I don't care about it that much for at home use. You know, if I'm at home, I don't need the latest and greatest, big bumping sound system and this 4K 120 hertz TV or whatever. I don't need that shit. I don't care about it. Does the picture quality look good enough? Yeah. Does the sound good enough? Yeah. Okay, it's fine. I don't need the latest and greatest. And also the latest and greatest can be expensive, And that's another problem. Like, technology is advancing at such a pace that by the time you get something that you can afford and does what you need to do and what you think looks really good and was very cutting edge, it's already 3 or 4 generations behind. And now, the next latest and greatest is so complex and so stunningly gorgeous and all this other shit. You're like, Jesus Christ, okay. But you still gotta wait a couple of years before you can afford that because it's like ridiculously expensive because it is the latest and greatest. So you wait a couple years and it's cheaper, and then there's the new latest and greatest. It's just like, son of a bitch, I thought we were already at the peak. And essentially we are. If you look at TV technology and camera technology in the recent years, there have been cameras and televisions that have been able to record and output more information than the human eye can perceive. And I don't mean frame rate. I mean like literal pixel density and color gradients. Like the displays themselves have more information than the human eye normally takes in. You can have a picture more detailed than your eye would look at it, which is crazy. Sure, they're like thousands upon thousands of dollars and nobody's using those cameras for a lot of shit. Other than like certain things, almost nobody's using those cameras because they're even more expensive than the displays themselves. It's bonkers. It is fucking bonkers how we can have like information so complex like that our own bodies can't perceive it. Right? We've gotten to that point in technology where we're making shit that it surpasses the human body. And yet we're still marketing it. It's just like, it hurts. When I look at those displays at like certain stores or whatever, and I'm looking at those displays, it's like, this hurts. Like, it physically hurts me to look at it. Like, it causes my eye strain. And I'm like 12 feet away from whatever. And it's still like, like the colors are too saturated and like the details too much, and it just hurts my eyes. It legitimately hurts my eyes because of how much information it is. It's just like, great. Who would want this? Who would want it? Seriously. Who would want a display so intense that our eyes can't even, take in all the information? It seems like such a waste. It really does. Theoretically, you'd only want to make a display as good as the human eye. But no, we're making shit past it. It's just like, why? Literally nobody can see it. There is no point. Unless you replace my eyes with those cameras that can record that, which are like this fucking big, what's the point? There is none. There straight up is none. But that's what we've gone to. We've gone to, displays that can, show more than we can see. Cameras that can film more than we can see. Audio equipment that can hear more than we can hear. That's been around for a while, though. So much shit. And I think it hurts theaters because all these things are consumer products and things that people can have in their own home. And theaters, they're limited. For them to change a setup, it costs them a whole bunch of money because they use a projector system. Imagine buying a fucking 70-foot, OLED panel. Like, that would be ridiculously expensive rather than a projector. And even then, the projectors are still really expensive. Not to mention, a lot of theaters are using digital files instead of like film for their showings. Like for the projectors read a digital file and then show that rather than film back in the day. And that file has to be pretty good. Not to mention they have to pay for the storage for the files. They're going to have multiple movies on standby. Different theaters are going to be showing different things depending on the week or whatever. So it's a bit bonkers, bit cuckoo, bit nutty doo doo. A lot of shit. But yeah, I don't see any time soon theaters going back to their glory. I think they're going to be kind of stuck unless they do major upgrades. But even then, who's to say? I mean, they have those fancy recliners now, which are great. I love those. Some theaters have food service, which is really cool, and drink service, which is neat. But I don't know how much those are going to help, especially considering those are distractions from the movie. So, yeah. So I don't know how well movie theaters are going to do. With a huge advent of online streaming and with the huge improvements in home entertainment, I don't see the movie theater lasting much longer. I think its only saving grace is people are buying property less and less because of how expensive it is. And because of that, they can't have as extravagant as they want home theater sets. And so because of that, the theater is still really their only option for that big theater quality experience. But who's to say how long that will last? It just depends on the real estate market, I suppose. So I guess the theaters hinge on whether or not people can afford houses, which is a really weird thing to think about, but I guess it makes some sense in a roundabout way. I've been going for 17 minutes, so I think I'm just going to cut it off there.